If you've ever fallen in love with a fictional duke, fae prince, a pirate king, a vampire, or a morally gray warlord, you're in the right place. Welcome to Historic Hearts Club, the podcast that dives into the fantastical world of historical romance and romantasy with your hosts, Marisa Coulter and Mary Pope. The spoilers will be spilt and the tea piping hot as we unpack this week's spicy read. And this week's read was chosen by me. I chose Three Chances to Cherish by Grace Callaway. But before we dive into our book talk, Mary, what's new with you?
I have been on a rampage of booking trips lately, Marissa. I'm actually coming to Denver in March, but only for a couple of days. You're gonna have we'll coordinate where exactly I'll be. I feel like I'm like a little child and I have to tell all my friends, like, okay, you're gonna drop me off and then my other friend is gonna pick me up here because I'm trying desperately to avoid renting a car. But yeah, so I can't wait to see you. Surprise.
I love that. I'm so excited.
I thought you would be. And I know there's a couple new romance bookstores in Denver that I never got the chance to go to before I moved. I don't know if they were around, but maybe we can have a little field trip, go buy a book.
Color me intrigued. I would love to do that. I have not been to any romance bookstores in anywhere, actually. So that sounds like a great time.
Well, it sounds like something, we would both enjoy. There's one that's not too far from me and my office over in Culver City called The Ripped Bodice. Very much like about historical fiction, but they carry all sorts of genres. So if you're ever out in LA, we'll have to go over there.
I am hoping to get out there sometime this spring for work. So when I do, you'll be pretty much the only person that I hit up.
Perfect. I love to monopolize people's time, so.
Call me Mr. Monopoly because you can monopolize my time anytime.
Man, what a name to say in the bedroom. Can you imagine?
I know. Sometimes we have to shorten it, but that's okay.
How are you, though? What's been going on with you?
You know, it's been a week, Mary. My son fell ill with an ear infection and some sort of like cold virus last weekend. And then my husband's birthday was on Monday. Well, in the span of time between like Friday when he got sick to Monday, I then got sick. And then to throw a wrench into things, my husband had planned a ski trip in Vail for his birthday for a few days. So then I had to solo parent last week all by myself, sick as a dog.
While you're sick,
down and
God.
out. It was a real feat. However, what I will say is that I think like deep in my son's brain, and I should preface, my son's 18 months old. So, you know, you're dealing with like not always knowing exactly what they need. However, I think he read the room because that child has not been that well behaved, and I can't even remember how long. It was a treat, a treasure, a joy, and he made things so easy for me. So,
wait,
7 blessings to you, Colt.
I'm so sorry you were sick. Also, I don't have any kids, but like I know that moms never get a day off. So like that, like really showing that is true with you having a solo parent while sick. But going back to Colt, you guys are all going to know this about me at some point, but I'm really into astrology and things like this. Didn't we do his birth chart? Isn't he a Libra rising? I feel like that would make sense for him reading the room.
Think so. I'd have to go back in our text because I know we did do his birth chart. And now I can't remember what his rising sign is. But for those interested in astrology, my son is a Leo. I'm a Scorpio. My husband's a Capricorn. I can honestly say that each and every one of us are our signs to a T. And so take that as you will. But it's scary how accurate our signs are.
Also, you and I are both Gemini rising, which is why we're here on this podcast, communicating, yapping to all of you, our favorite listeners, about books. Again, communication, so on brand. Astrology is real, guys. It really is.
It's real. It's really real. And for those who don't believe in it, that's fine. You're entitled to your own thoughts and opinions.
I guess. Why are you a Capricorn?
I know, seriously, Matt's rubbing off on me. Uh-oh.
I know. I know. Oh my
But yeah, so
gosh.
I'm just looking forward to our family being on the mend because now my husband is sick, and boy, is our house not a great place to be when when
No, he's
sickness
gonna listen
comes
to
to
this
call.
episode and be like, wow, you really called me out, Marissa. Yeah,
I
Matt, we
know.
did.
I We have a fabulous story to bring you guys this week. So as I said in our last episode, I've been following Grace Callaway for some time. I love her book. I would say, quite frankly, if you're interested in historical romance, check her out. Doesn't matter what book you pick up. Every single one has been good. And yes, I can also honestly say I've read every single one of her books, so I can attest. But she's a fantastic author. I want to give a little bit of background on this read in particular because I kind of broke the rules a little bit. I picked a book that isn't first in series technically. So I want to give folks who have not read some of the previous books a little bit of backgrounds. Three Chances to Cherish is part of the Blackwood Legacy series. It's the third book in the series. Now, in order to understand further background on that, this series is it comes off the heels of a different book from a different series that takes place like 20 to 25 years earlier, and it follows the matriarch and patriarch of the Blackwood family. So we have the father and the mother. The mother, Pandora, is like one of my favorites. But basically, in that book, they go through this love story of them already being married. So kind of similar to the book that we read this week, but already being married. However, the father finds out that Pandora has been a spy in a previous life. And she actually had a huge hand in saving him when he was fighting Bonnie as part of English forces. So there's this whole backstory. He feels betrayed. She actually did him a solid. They both weren't quite 100% honest with each other. But essentially, they learn to put aside those things, forget the past, and move on with their lives, loving each other, loving their children. So that one's a really sweet book. But the Blackwood Legacy series comes out of that. So it's centered around their children. The first book was centered around the middle brother, and that book is called One Kiss to Desire. This is Lord Ethan Harrington and Xenia Loveday. Ethan was a former piano virtuoso. He was fantastic, huge aspirations. Unfortunately, an accident happens. His hand is rendered not totally useless, but he can't play to the best of his abilities anymore. He retreats to the countryside with his tail between his legs to this mysterious little town of Chudley Bottoms, where he buys this kind of decrepit house that needs a little bit of updating. Anyways, he hires Xenia as his housekeeper. He thinks that she's this timid, kind of wonky housekeeper, not super great at her job. Really, she's on the run. She's hiding from a crazy past where her mom is a famous cutthroat and highway robber.
Oh my God. Drama.
Yes, and essentially her mother's coming for her. She's coming for this mysterious treasure of Bloody Tom. We find out that Bloody Tom is this ghost figure from the town who was separated from his love Rose. And so that curse still kind of shapes the town to this day. We get to the second book in the series, Two Secrets to Surrender. This is centered around Lady Gigi Harrington, the sister, and Conrad Goodwin. Gigi is staying with Ethan, her brother, in Chudley Bottoms. She falls in love with the town, falls in love with the people. They're a very eclectic group of people. And she sees these business opportunities to kind of help bring the town back to its former glory before the curse of Bloody Tom really ran havoc. Now, Conrad Goodwin comes in, and he's an industrialist. He has more money than God, and he buys certain pieces of the town as a point of revenge, and he intends to completely dismantle the town and render it like just destroyed. Gigi does not take that sitting down, and so we see this battle of wills throughout the book. Of course, that sparks heat. They fall in love, and we find out a little bit more about Bloody Tom and Rose, and you get a little bit more of the curse in that book. Now for the book that we actually read, now that we're all caught up. So this one I've been waiting for. It follows Lord James Harrington. He's the Earl of Manderley, and he's the eldest of all of the children. And he has been married to his wife, Evie Ashwood, for quite some time. I think it's about four-ish years.
4 years, yeah.
Yeah. And over that time, essentially, they got married because he was saving her from potential ruin. She unfortunately was cornered by a blackguard in Orangery greenhouse area at a ball, and Lord Manderley comes in and finds that this blackguard is accosting Evie. He steps in. The blackguard basically says, I'm going to ruin you and your name, so watch out, lady. And our sweet Lord Manderley, James, he knows right then and there he's going to marry Evie. So essentially, we have Evie who's dealing throughout the beginning of their marriage with a lot of feelings of self-doubt, of feeling guilty, beholden to James, that James made this ultimate sacrifice for her in marrying her, and that she wasn't worthy, she wasn't good enough for him. She has a lot of secrets that she's keeping too, which make her feel even more that she's unworthy of James, who is a super dutiful, very reserved member of the aristocracy. And at the end of the day, James wants intimacy with his wife. This sweet, sweet cinnamon roll of a man may have married her, not necessarily knowing his capacity for love, but he grows to love her and he wants that deep intimacy with her. And unfortunately, the secrets that Evie is hiding drives a wedge between them and definitely makes it impossible for James or her to get the level of intimacy that they want out of their marriage as long as those secrets are still hidden. So that kind of sets the stage for where we're at, how the book begins. And to give a little color into chapter 1, so we start things off pretty hot in like chapter 1 too. We have a very spicy, intimate scene between James and Evie. They're finally coming together. It's made more apparent in the following chapters that their frequency of intimacy is not great. It hasn't been good. There are reasons behind that. Again, we deal in spoilers here, and I will say that, let me just stop and give a couple of trigger warnings before we go too far down the line. You can expect miscarriage, murder and violence, poisoning, emotional abuse, and some light familial sexual abuse as well, which obviously, comes to play in their marriage. But all that is to say that we start with a bang. Evie and James are finally coming together, but honestly, those secrets, they're still driving a wedge, despite the closeness that they come to in that first love scene. I don't know about you, Mary, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on favorite moments and what you felt reading the book. But all I can say is that throughout the entire book, I was banging my head against the wall. I loved the book, but I was banging my head against the wall because this girl does not have an honest bone in her body, and she does not understand that this would help everything.
I know. I have that as a note for chapter 4. Oh my God, just trust James to protect you from whatever your past was. He is such a good guy. She compares him to the god Apollo because she's like, oh, you're on a pedestal. You're so perfect and golden. He's like, it's not the god I want to be, but I loved that comparison. But oh my gosh, so frustrating with, honestly, for both of them. They were just so in their head that neither one of them could really look out and see what the bigger picture was, or read their room, so to speak. They were just
Right.
like, each one of them was guilty of like, oh my gosh, they don't love me. It's because of these reasons. Everything is a failure. And,
Mhm.
like you could put that on like either her paradigm with all her secrets in the past, or
Mhm.
James being like, she doesn't, reciprocate intimacy. It's because she doesn't love me. And like, our marriage
Mhm.
was a failure. And so that was just frustrating. But yes, I was so frustrated by her inability to just trust in James
I
to like
agree.
be her protector, you know?
I agree. I agree. She builds him up as this protector, and I wrote a note in my Fable notes that was basically in that first several chapter period, to your point. And I wrote this note that basically was like, you believe that he is the ultimate husband and protector, yet he's begging you to be honest with him. Give him a bone and tell him, share your worries, share your problems with him. And you can't even actually like put your money where your mouth is and trust the man. Like this man just wants to protect you, love
Yeah.
you, make you safe, and you won't do any of that. And one thing that I don't want to lose sight of too that you mentioned that I did love about this book is that they were so in their own heads. And one thing that I think can be
Mhm.
very difficult is looking outside of yourself as like the type of person that you are. And I'm surprise, very loud, gregarious, like I wear my heart on my sleeve. You always know what I'm thinking or if I'm displeased, but like I the way that Grace wrote this, I really felt their their introversion. I felt like how
Mhm.
hard it was for them to be emotional and like put their hearts out there. And I really appreciated that about this book because it's not necessarily who I am, but it made me think
Mhm.
outside of myself into like, man, that would just I did feel for Evie, even though I was very annoyed and impatient with her. I felt
Mhm.
for her because at the end of the day, she's very quiet. She's very damaged and to an extent so is James. And that would just be so hard to navigate the reconstruction of a marriage when you're dealing with two people who have a really hard time openly communicating.
Yeah, and then I think that they both just they had so much anxiety that they almost both thought that the marriage was beyond saving. Even though
Mhm.
they were literally in these scenes where the other partner is like desperately trying to save the marriage, then you would like hear in their head of, well, it's
Mhm.
over, like there's nothing there, it'll never work. I should just run away, or like we never should have gotten married. And it was just like, can't you see? But yes, you're right. Like Grace did a really great job really writing that anxiety, because I'm similar
Mhm.
to you, right? I think I'm usually really good at kind of the EQ side of things, and like understanding where other people are coming from. And I don't
Mhm.
necessarily get in my head as much, but it was a very interesting piece of literature to read and like really get into a character that is different from you.
Mhm. I completely agree. I completely agree. Um, I loved the incorporation of James's family. They're all so
Mhm.
funny and like the entire time it did give me like kind of like a pit because I'm like, "Oh my god, they all know how bad your marriage is." And like just
And they're
stop.
both trying to play it cool, and they're like, "No, everything's
Right.
fine. It's private." And it's like, "Oh my gosh, you have like 7 people trying to help you. Like, just
I
let them."
know. Just let them help you. That's all they want to do is help you out. Like
Yeah, I love that they all they're all lovers. They all like married for love. That's kind of like their unofficial family motto. I really enjoyed
mhm.
that. But I think it also played into James's anxiety of, well, if everyone else married for love, man, I really messed up because I didn't, and Evie doesn't love me and she'll
Right.
never love me. Whereas like Evie is like, oh my gosh, I love him so much. I would do anything to protect him. It's just like, oh my gosh, you guys. I wanted to grab
Yeah.
him and shake him.
I did too, and it was like it all was such just it Evie's behavior in terms of pushing him away drove me crazy. Like when they talk about, again, trigger miscarriage, when we do get further into the book, we learn more about this miscarriage that happened about a year ago. And they're in a fight, and Evie spews such terrible, terrible things about how she ultimately like believed it was a good thing that it happened because she didn't want to be tied to James anyway. And it was just, it broke my heart. Like,
It was so cruel, so cruel. And
so
she's like
cruel.
crying inside. And I'm like, girl, what are you
Yeah.
doing? Girl.
Completely self-destructive. She was completely self-destructive. And I also understand, and like we learn this later, and I think James gives her a lot of latitude for this, but she was extremely emotionally abused as a child. It started filtering into familial sexual abuse by her stepfather as she got older. But it was very sad to see the level of self-doubt and self-hatred that she had for herself and how that was being projected into her marriage.
Yeah, it's just negatively impacting every part of her life, because it started when at such an impressionable young age, it's just truly sad, truly sad.
Mhm.
Um, One of my favorite moments, though, and I know when you were giving the recap, you talk about it, and Evie alludes to this multiple times, like James married her to save her reputation, and I think he is a really good man, comes from a really good family. I think that is like partially true, but then when she brings it up in chapter 12, he's like, I didn't marry you just to save you because I'm noble and good. Like, I wanted you in my bed. And I love that she has this idea that he's all noble and good and he was just a simple, horny man. And honestly, I feel like
Yeah.
that is like very truthful for like, or very true for like so many men. All these
Mhm.
women, we all think that they have these complex reasons for why they do things, or like the things that they like about a person or think about a person or partner, and they're just horny and selfish, and they're like, no, I wanted to bed
Mhm.
you. And I feel like how freeing would it be to just be able to live like that instead of like having all of these other things that you have to think about of why you like someone or why you want to marry someone. Men just get off so easy.
Yeah, 1,000%, 1,000%. I did love that line, though. I thought that was actually kind of endearing and sweet because she was so sure that he had just married her for reasons of saving her. But again, head banging against the wall. She cannot get over that fact. And I'm like, Evie, girl, move on. He has told you multiple times that that is not the case. You have got
Yeah,
to let it go. Let
I
it
know.
go.
Well, I also think like it had been like ingrained in her from a young age that she was just like plump and plain, and she was like, nobody likes me. Obviously,
Mhm.
I mean, like this incredible man, he's an earl, likes you and like
Mhm.
doesn't think you're plain and like likes all your curves. There's like a lot of descriptors throughout all the spicy scenes of this book of like him really enjoying that, and I appreciated that as like a more curvy woman. um and I also, one of my other favorite moments, oh my gosh, going back to the spicy scenes or just like hints at them,
Yeah.
I love that he has fantasies about her wearing her glasses. Oh my God. Cause I wear glasses, and like I've had people I've been, in relationships with kind of allude to the things that go through their heads about me wearing glasses during different intimate acts. And I love that that was written into this book because I haven't ever read that before. And I was like, this is true. Men do think this.
I know. I really liked that too. I thought that that was really cute. And like, I loved how surprised she was by that too.
I know.
I thought that was really, really sweet. Yeah, I will say the intimate scenes didn't disappoint this book. It was
They were
definitely,
good.
as far as my count goes, we're into the 5 out of 5 on the spiciness scale. It
Mm-hmm.
hits our threshold. You won't be
Mm-hmm.
disappointed. Um, but I thought that they were very tender and very nice. I like at the end of the day, the love that they did have for each other, what they couldn't say in words, it definitely came through in the spicy scenes, which I enjoyed. I really liked that aspect of it. Um, okay, I do want to talk about tertiary characters for a moment.
Yeah. Let's do it. Let's do it.
So, first of all, Mrs. Lester, the grocer's wife.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just say, like, what a sweetheart. I want to be friends with Mrs. Lester.
Yes, I love
She
her.
was just so sweet. She was so sweet. I loved how she is basically like this herbalist who like basically is a doctor because the town doesn't have one. And like, good for you, girl. Good for you. I liked seeing that Evie started opening up to her a little bit because clearly she didn't feel comfortable enough to open up to others in her family about some of the struggles that she was going through. But I'm glad that she at least found someone. I really enjoyed that relationship. Can we talk about the Harkness of it all? Because
gosh, I was convinced that like Harkness was there's again spoilers, the nefarious blackmailer. I was convinced that was Harkness, and like I was like, she is playing a role. She is in cahoots because she's so cold and stern, and it almost comes across as like not actually caring, and it could have been construed as being manipulative. And so I wrote her off early. I was like, I don't like this character. Also, and she doesn't like James, and it's like, how could you not like him? He is being so incredible to this girl you claim to love and so, like want to protect. Why would you hate her husband, who is amazing?
I know. So I completely agree with you. I 1000% thought that Harkness was the blackmailer. I was like, I put that in my Fable notes. Like, obviously that was debunked, but I was in the same camp. Second, how diabolical are you, Evie? That this woman hates your husband. You keep her around all the time. And you don't think that's going to have a negative impact on your marriage? Are you crazy? Like,
she is crazy. She's crazy.
She's crazy. She's lovable, but
men
she's
like
crazy.
That. Yeah.
That's true.
She was. But yeah, I mean, like, if you love your husband as much as you say you do in your head, not out loud, you think that when he is like kind of implying that, you know, Harkness is making things difficult for them and their marriage, that she would read the room or like listen to his actual words, and she doesn't. But like James, again, being his golden husband self, is like, okay, well, you really love this person. I'll keep her around, not even as a servant, just as a companion, because you love her, even though she hates my guts, you know?
Yes.
Wow.
I know. I mean, that's another point for James right there.
Yeah.
I could never. Another tertiary character that I did want to discuss. Lady Vernon. Snake in the grass, Lady Vernon.
Yes. Oh my God. So many thoughts about her. Also interesting that like, you know, I've like kind of been giving Evie shit for like not being able to read the room, but like could read that scenario immediately. And James could not.
Yes.
James was like, oh, she just wants to support my campaign and see me successful.
Yeah.
What a simpleton, a little sweetie.
Yeah, honey. I'm sorry, but James, read the room. This woman wants to get into your britches, okay? Like,
yeah,
plain and simple. Plain and simple.
Oh my gosh.
Clear as day.
That woman, yes. Oh my God. The politics and the games that was written into the, like, Lady Vernon's character was impressive because it just gave her this extra weight of, she really knows what she's doing. She's very calculated. It's all very selfish. It's just what she wants, but she's really good at getting all these people on board to believe in her having some like altruistic motive. And like, really, she's just like, I mean, who knows? Maybe she even killed her husband so then she could go after all these young political stars. Like, we don't know. We don't know her backstory.
1000%. I did not like her. I finally gave Evie a tiny shred of credit for going to her house when Lady Vernon invited James there for a private dinner. I understand that they were working when Evie walked in, but like, James, again, read the room. Like,
I bet they wouldn't have been working, you know, another 30 minutes later. So
right. She wanted to get her claws in there. I loved how Evie, you know, wet from the rain, comes in a bedraggled mess, and she's just like, get your paws off my husband.
Yeah.
And then James is mad at her, of all things. He's like,
I know.
Evie, you so overreacted. Like, God, I know. I was like, James, come on. You've
Oh
been
my
begging this
God. Yeah.
woman, begging her to show some semblance of loving you, of caring about you, of like any warm, intimate thoughts about you. And she does just that in the form of her jealousy. And then you reprimand her and make her
Oh
feel
my
like a
God.
crazy person. Typical man.
Those those two characters, man, Evie and James, they had a bit of a toxic roller coaster of like up and down. They had this big
Mm-hmm.
fight. They're really cold. Everything's over to like getting
Mm-hmm.
really mad at each other and then like incredible makeout sex or makeup sex. Um, yeah, just I think I wrote in my notes a couple times like, "Oh my God, you guys need therapy." Type type type.
Mm-hmm.
Because they really did.
I know, I know. I at the very least confide in James's mom. Like Lady Pandora is like
Yeah.
the ultimate mother-in-law. Like confide in her, please. She was a spy. She can keep your secrets. And the thing is, Evie knows that Pandora was a spy. So like don't sit here and tell me you're worried to like divulge your feel like come on. Just share,
Oh my gosh.
talk, something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah, very very frustrating. Um, but before we get too far into kind of like what starts to happen towards the end, I just want to
mhm.
say I loved all like the prophetic dreams that Evie was having. I loved the
Mhm.
curse. That is my vibe, Marissa. As I know we started
I
this off
know.
talking about astrology. Obviously, I love dreams. I love prophecies. I love a little bit of that. Ooh, there's a little something more here energetically.
Mhm.
And the dreams that she was having, that then she would like find the cave with the seashells. I loved it. That was my vibe.
I know. I love that too. And I love how that's the piece that kind of weaves throughout all of the books in the series is this whole kind of like ethereal presence of Bloody Tom and Rose. And I'm itching for the next book, Owen's story, because I want so badly to find out how that ends. I mean, clearly we know that Bloody Tom and Rose were separated in Tom's death, which was gruesome, terrible. It was not a death, it was a murder, I should say. That happened in a previous book, but we know all of that. But I want to know like I mean, and this is jumping ahead to the end, but that scene where Bloody Tom and Rose get to see each other in the grotto, and I'm just like they're
Yes.
like we're
When
so
she's like
close, I
touching
can
his
feel it.
face.
I know.
Oh my God, I love an
I
unrequited
loved
love
that.
story. Oh my God.
I know. Well, and I'm so
God,
curious
yeah.
too how they're going to end up weaving in who the baby is and how it's connected to the family. Because she's pregnant, Rose is
Yeah.
pregnant in the dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of
Mm-hmm.
also the parallel to Evie's life is like the miscarriage, the pregnancy, that sort of thing. But I'm so curious because I'm going to throw some ponderings out there, if you will. I feel like one option could be that the Blackwoods are like somehow related to this child of Rose and Bloody Tom's.
Mm-hmm.
Alternatively, it could be just like a funny connection and the town orator, I can't recall his name. He shows up a little bit more. Wally, the town
Oh,
orator.
Wally. Yeah, yeah.
Maybe Wally is actually the son of Bloody Tom and Rose. That would be kind of like a funny connection. Um, I'm
Mm-hmm.
just so I'm I'm here for the story and the plot, and I want to know what happens with that.
I do too. I want to know the end. I need to go back and I need to read the earlier books in the series because I love that whole story. I love the dreams and the prophecy. And yeah, I
Hmm.
want to know. I want to know who's who. Maybe, maybe it's the grocer's wife, our favorite character who kind of is like that
Yes.
warm, everyone trusts her. She really cares about the town and is like pulling people in. I don't know.
You
Guys, we should
could
take
be
bets.
correct. You could be correct in that I forgot that Rose's traveling gypsy family were healers. And she comments on the fact that like she doesn't really have her mother's skill in like herbalism and healing, but she knew enough to like poison the guy who was that we
Mm-hmm.
don't know the identity of yet, but who was physically assaulting her. Um, so that could be a connection there. Very good point.
Mm. We will come back, obviously,
Yes.
when that book comes out and we find out, because I want to know and I
I
want to
know we
discuss.
have to close the
Um,
loop.
Definitely. But going back to knowing enough to poison, as we get later on in the book and like more starts to come out about like Evie's childhood, about kind of the
Mm-hmm.
trauma that she was enduring. And she had been carrying around all this guilt for years and years, thinking that she was responsible for murdering her awful stepfather who really deserved it. And then it comes out in the end that, like, then she didn't, you know? And it was like, oh, there is no scandal. It's all for naught. I am
Mm-hmm.
not this terrible person. And that was incredible to kind of see that story arc for her.
I agree. I also, I mean, talk about playing the long game. Her stepfather really was holding on to that
Well,
blackmail for
manipulative. Yeah.
quite some time. Also, a lot of times with things like this, I'll be fair to the author. Like they try to like make it a surprise, but you can kind of see it coming. I didn't honestly
Mm-hmm.
see the fact he was still alive coming. Like that actually surprised me.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was in chapter 4 I wrote down, "Oh my God, did she kill her stepfather and someone is coming for revenge?" And then it like
Mm-hmm.
start and then it's like, "Oh yeah, she did kill someone." I did not see that twist that like she didn't actually kill them. They were all in
No.
cahoots. Again, I was convinced it was Harkness. And
Mm-hmm.
then when he's like alive in the end for a little
Mm-hmm.
while,
For a little while.
I was shocked.
I know, I was too. That actually really surprised me. In a good way, though. I mean, it definitely lent to the story. It did make me feel good in that, like, Evie could have at least a semblance of peace with that part of her life. I mean, she still has to deal with
Mhm.
the fact that effectively her stepfather faked his death in front of her and then blamed it on her. But I appreciated that she could at least hopefully let some of that go, knowing what she knows now. I mean,
Yeah.
that'll take
I mean,
time,
obviously
but
she's still traumatized and that will take time to like repattern those thought patterns,
mhm.
but hopefully with like actually moving forward to trust James, she does like she actually opens up to James in the end. It basically takes the end like him threatening an ultimatum of like this is over. I'm going to walk out of this little greenhouse cottage and like we're done to her for
Yeah.
her to be like, "No, I love you so much. Like let me tell you the actual truth." And then opens up immediately to his whole family, which I love. And so like she is healing and growing in the very end, but um I wonder if that those patterns are like, you know, going to persist or if they're going to come up at all in like some sort of self-sabotage in any of the future books in just like subtle ways as a tertiary character in other people's stories.
Yeah, I feel like they'll probably like, thinking about the next book, I feel like they'll probably write her pretty recovered from that whole
Mm,
ordeal, probably humbled by it, but like likely recovered. But all that is to say, I'm very excited for Owen's book because Owen is the final brother and he suffered terrible PTSD and after effects from his time in the Afghan war. Um, he finds his Princess Charming, and I'm excited for that book because I think it's going to be a beautiful healing journey love story because he's just so damaged and broken from what he's seen and had to do that I think that one's going to end things on a really nice note for the series.
yeah, and I am excited to read the way Grace is going to write that character because going back to our
Mhm.
earlier discussions, right? She did such a great job of writing these characters with their anxiety and the way they're introverted and in their head. That's so different from both you and I
Mhm.
that I think I'm excited to see how she writes Owen and like all the trauma that he's gone through.
Mhm.
I'm looking forward to that. I think it's going to be a really great story and a really great way to get into a character that is out of your norm, which is why that's why we read, guys. That's why we read.
Mhm. Exactly. It gives us an opportunity to step outside of ourselves, forget about the world that we live in for a brief few minutes, whatever, and just love, honestly.
What was your absolute favorite spicy scene? Did you have one?
I would say I would say either chapter 19,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, chapter 19, there is some oral for her as well as some breast chest play. I enjoyed that scene. I also really liked the carriage scene too.
Yeah. Yeah. I also love chapter 19, kind of like that makeup sex after Evie barging in on the dinner date
Yes.
with the little harlot
Mhm.
and just like it the way that Grace writes it, so spicy. I really enjoyed
Mhm.
it in a really kind of vulgar descriptive way. Agree. That was
Yeah.
also my favorite. But yes, I know that we are kind of starting to wrap up, so I hand it over to
Well,
you.
in that vein, I'd love for you just to maybe give us a little teaser of what we're going to be talking about next week with the book club.
Yes. So next week, we are going to be discussing Hooked by Emily McIntyre. It is basically a modern retelling of Peter Pan. It's the first book of the Never After series, which are all these different books about a retelling of different fairy tales. They're kind of focused on spinning the typical villains into antiheroes. And we get a really fun arc of James Hook, who is our main male character, Wendy Michaels, who is our main female, and just kind of like a modern mob gangster story. So I'm excited to read that and discuss that with you all.
It is super good. You're in for a treat. It's very dark, just to, give you that heads
Mm-hmm.
up in advance, but it is so good. I cannot wait to discuss it with you, Mary. But thank you guys so much for joining us today for another episode of the Historic Hearts Club. If you haven't already, join the Historic Hearts Club book club on the Fable app for even more hot takes on your favorite books. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and follow Historic Hearts Club on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and X for updates, book recs, teasers, everything that you might be looking for. Lastly, sound off in the comments with what you think our next great read should be. And until next time, we'll see you later.